We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
And we're back talking with Bill Walton, host of the excellent Bill Walton Show, discussing all things economic and the future of American politics. I wanted to get your thoughts on the nature of compromise in Washington at the moment. So we had Joe Biden come into office saying that he was going to be the unity president. And he has achieved a few pieces of legislation in terms of more popular things that go across the aisle, veteran affairs, aid to Ukraine. Aside from those, there doesn't appear to be any real cross-party unity. And in many cases, not even unity among congressional Democrats. Is the age of compromise dead and buried?
Well, quick story. As you mentioned, I've got a webcast called The Bill Walton Show, and I started it up a few years ago, and my original name for it was On Common Ground with Bill Walton. Now it's called The Bill Walton Show. Why the change? Well, I couldn't really find any common ground.
I believe one of your first guests was a mayor.
Yeah, the mayor of Little Washington, Virginia. Yeah. He's a good guy, liberal, progressive Democrat. We still like each other, but we found some common ground, but that was increasingly hard to find. You know, you think about compromise. Look at what's happening with the January 6th committee here. This kangaroo court, this star chamber run by Pelosi Democrats in the House. You can't have compromise. You can't have a political climate where people want to work together if you've got something like January 6th happening, which is determined to put most of the people who work for Donald Trump in jail and making sure that Donald Trump never comes back as president. I mean, it's a 100% partisan operation. Pelosi refused to put anybody who is a real Republican on the committee. Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger don't count.
Certainly not. No.
That's but a big example, and you really haven't found any compromise on these big bills that have been passed. They've been passed with highly partisan majorities and nary a Republican vote for most of them.
Yeah, I think that that partisanship, we're seeing that in all branches. Obviously, Joe Biden's only willing to go his way. The Congress is only willing to go its way. And the Supreme Court, which I think many of our listeners are quite thrilled about the more recent makeup of the Supreme Court. And this has, I think, really naturally sparked a national conversation on what rights are. But I wonder if we take a small time slot of Joe Biden in the White House. In your opinion, have rights expanded in America or contracted, and how so?
Well, if you want to use the last 18 months as the timeline,
my next question is about longer timeline.
Yeah, well,
you can answer them both together. Bill.
I don't know that they were highly contracted even under President Trump when we had all the states engaging in lockdowns and declaring some businesses essential and others non-essential, which is, if you're trained in economic thought the way I am, that's a crazy distinction. All businesses are essential. So it's better because the mass mandates are going away. People are a little freer to move about. We've still got vaccine mandates that are lurking out there, and Biden's threatening to I think the number I've heard, which may be exaggerated, was that he could lose almost 25% of the military because of these people do not want to get the vaccine, which seems pretty rational in the face that there seems to be some evidence that the more people get vaccinated, the more likely they are to get the virus. I can't weigh in on that. As they say, I'm not a scientist, but I do know it doesn't feel like we've had a rebirth of freedom even slightly. And if this were you're from the UK, if this were a parliamentary system, I think we'd be seeing somebody else besides Biden as our leader. I mean, there's only, I think, like 76% of Democrats want to see Biden go. They do not want him to run for re-election again. The long knives are already out here. You've got governors like unbelievably, you have governors like J.B. Pritzker and Gavin Newsom, who have respectively ruined Illinois and ruined California. They're burnishing their presidential credentials. So I'd say freedom, free debate, honest reporting from the media. No, it certainly hadn't gotten better, and I think it's probably gotten worse.
It's funny you bring up Gavin Newsom. The latest betting odds have Gavin Newsom as an 8-1 to win the 2024 nomination. And seeing as Joe Biden is allegedly still running, it's funny that there's so much money being bet on it. A final question for you, Bill, if I may. The tagline to your show, it's money, culture, politics, and human flourishing. Now, I love this. I think this is the element of human flourishing is such an important aspect of what people should be focusing on. So can I ask, what does it mean to you personally? And how do you see all of us, our role in encouraging people to make the endeavor of human flourishing a prime mover in their lives?
Well, when everything's become political, I think we've got to back up and ask ourselves, what is political? What does it mean? What's the goal? What's the goal of politics? And in my view, it's got to be human flourishing, and you've got to have a set of ideas that are based in reality. They work, they're moral, and they make people happy. They make people flourish. And whether you call our views traditional, conservative, whatever the label you want to give it, I think the market system, the constitutional limited government, and all the things that have made this country terrific, those are ideas that have been proven over time to create human flourishing, not only just here in the United States, but all over the world. And so the aim, in my view, for policy and for all our conversations is, does this lead to human flourishing? And I think the jury is in. The left doesn't have any answers with that regard. They seem desperately unhappy and want to make us unhappier. And our ideas work, and I think they lead to healthy, productive lives and families and strong civil community. And to me, that's the goal.
And happy warriors, of course. Bill Walton, thank you ever so much. Thank you for being here with us. Now, could you just let our listeners know where they can tune into your show, please?
Sure. We're on our website, of course, thebillwaltonshow.com, but we're also on YouTube, Rumble, and all the major podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple. Also, we're on the CPAC Now channel every Monday night at 7 o'clock. Of course, you don't have to watch it then. You can tape it and watch it later. And I'm also appearing on Frank Gaffney's show on the Steve Bannon Network, where we talk about China and capital markets and where we go from here in terms of our relationships with China.
Thank you ever so much. You're listening to Liberty Nation Radio, heard across the Radio America network from our flagship station in the nation's capital, WWRC in Washington, D.C. Coming up, we're doubling down on our special Talking Liberty segment with Scott D. Cosenza discussing the plans afoot to remove Supreme Court justices through term limits. Don't go anywhere. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
We're doing it for real, really real. Liberty Nation.
And Jeff Charles, contributor for LibertyNation.com.
I think we're starting to make an impact. Liberty style, fight for freedom.
The tracking poll sponsored by Liberty Nation for Thursday.
Mentioned by Dan Bongino, Rasmussen, Jordan Peterson, and
I
others.
can do it again if you want me to.
Cited in Mark Levin's American Marxism.
I think we're starting to make a really big impact. Get noticed. We're doing it. Rock on. I'm gone.